put out by the Honorable Defence Minister of India. Now, Mr. Parrikar, with all due respects to him, and God give him a long life, and we wish him well, has done the perfect number on the Prime Minister. I mean, he couldn't have nailed him better. Possibly, Mr. Parrikar had an old score to settle, and he settled it squarely. He says, and you read it carefully, it appears. He says it appears. So what does it appears mean? When I say that it appears, this means I don't know. So when I say or use the terminology, it appears, ostensibly so, allegedly so, it means I do not know, I don't have personal knowledge. He says it appears that the PMO and the French President's office are monitoring the progress of the issue. See, he does not know that the Prime Minister's office is monitoring the progress, because there was no monitoring. This was a parallel negotiation. And if you read the note in its entirety, Defence Ministry is telling Prime Minister's office, stop this parallel negotiation. You are completely and absolutely undermining our position. And therefore, you have this strange situation whereby the Defence Minister does not even know that there is a parallel channel open between the PMO and somebody in the French government. And he goes on to say, it appears that the PMO and the French President's office are monitoring the progress of the issue, which was an outcome of the summit meeting. Para 5 appears to be an overreaction. Defence Secretary may resolve issue / matter in consultation with Principal Secretary to PM. So what has Parrikar done? Washed his hands of the matter. He said, boss, I am out of it. You, Defence Secretary, talk to Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister. These guys are up to monkey business. You know, tomorrow there is going to be a problem, and I am not going to be a part of it. He completely and absolutely absolves himself of all responsibility. Now, whether that will hold in a court of law tomorrow, I do not know. So therefore, when the Defence Minister talks about half notes being put out, she should have actually thanked that newspaper. Because by putting out the full note, the Defence Minister has nailed her Prime Minister squarely and nailed him to the wall. Now, let me come to the second defense of the government. The so-called letter of comfort which they are relying upon, that the French government wrote a letter on the 8th of September 2016. Insofar as the government of Republic of India will be required to make down payment before the delivery of the aircrafts and associated armaments, I hereby confirm that the government of the French Republic is fully committed in doing whatever it is necessary to make sure that the industrialist or industry, Dassault Aviation and MBDA France, each in their own aspect, do their utmost to fully respect their obligations in accordance with the aforesaid intergovernmental agreement and annex supplementary protocols. Now, this begs the fourth question. When do comfort letters with regard to a procurement process get written to the Prime Minister of India? And if the French Prime Minister has written to the Prime Minister of India, he is again squarely nailed the Prime Minister of India, because what this letter implies, that in the minds of the French, it's the Prime Minister of India who was the negotiator of the deal. It is the Prime Minister of India who was negotiating the deal and not the Ministry of Defense. And I would ask all of you, there is 500 years of institutional wisdom in this room. Please do some research. In the past 70 years, if you can find a single instance where the Prime Minister of India or the Prime Minister's office has directly negotiated a defense procurement process. We challenge the NDA BJP government to produce any paper document which can allude to the fact that the august office of the Prime Minister of India has ever been involved in negotiating a defense transaction with a foreign country. This is an absolute first. And the last question, which we do hope the Honorable Supreme Court would take cognizance of when they decide to list that clarificatory application which the government has filed, that if the Prime Minister's office was parallelly negotiating with the French President's office, why was this fact not brought to the attention of the Supreme Court? It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate. I'm just concluding. It is unfortunate, and I have great respect for the august office of the Prime Minister of India, but I would regretfully say that the Prime Minister of India's office almost behaved like a middleman in this defense transaction. This is our direct charge on the Prime Minister and his office. Thank you. क्या मैं ये समझूं कि बाकी में आपकी दिलचस्पी नहीं है? देखिए, बहुत ही दुखद मन से, और क्योंकि जो प्रधानमंत्री का पद है और प्रधानमंत्री का कार्यालय है, उसके लिए हमारे दिल में अत्यधिक इज्जत है, पर आज सुबह से जो कागज सार्वजनिक हुए हैं उससे ऐसा प्रतीत होता है कि भारत के प्रधानमंत्री का कार्यालय इस रक्षा सौदे में ऐसा समझो कि एक बिचौलिए का काम कर रहा था। अब किसके लिए कर रहा था, इसका जवाब प्रधानमंत्री और उनके कार्यालय को, देश को देना चाहिए। फ्लोर इज ऑल योर्स। Well, all that I would like to say to the Defense Secretary is that if there is and there will be a joint parliamentary committee constituted at some point in time to go into this issue, and the Defense Secretary or the then Defense Secretary is going to have a lot to answer. So therefore, obfuscation and attempting to continue serving his political masters is not going to bury the truth. We would like to request the then Defense Secretary that this is the time for him to come clean with all the facts surrounding this absolutely murky transaction. Look, first of all, allow me to welcome you back. So, as I was stating earlier, and let me reiterate, that the Defense Minister and the NDA BJP government should have actually thanked that publication for not dealing with the role of the Defense Minister. Because by putting out this note, the Defense Minister has totally and absolutely nailed her Prime Minister. I mean, there couldn't be a greater indictment of the interference of the PMO and the unwarranted, excessive, indiscreet interference of the PMO than what Mr. Parrikar's noting brings out. And you don't even have to read in between the lines. You just have to read the lines carefully, and no amount of spin, no amount of propaganda, no amount of North Korean television trying to spin it will change the facts. And the fact is that this Prime Minister's office did something which has never happened in the past 70 years, that they negotiated a defense deal behind the back of their own defense ministry with a foreign government. Look, there's a saying in English, there's a proverb in English, you know, when it rains, it pours. And so therefore, what you are possibly seeing is not even the first tranche of the documents. As we head into election season, once the model code of conduct kicks in, the terror and the bullying of the officers decreases, you will find that truth has a nasty way of making itself omnipresent. And therefore, this government's ostrich-like approach, whereby they thought by burying their head in the sand, this would blow over. This is not going to blow over. There will be a joint parliamentary committee, whether during the term of this parliament, but definitely in the next parliament, and there will be parallel criminal investigative processes. This is not going to go away. And to answer the unanswered or the half-asked question which Samia asked, that we were wrong in saying that the Defense Ministry was, or the Prime Minister's office was negotiating behind the defense ministry's back. That is not entirely correct, and the defense ministry knew about what the Prime Minister's office was doing. I think if you read this note in entirety, it brings out the utter anguish and the discomfort of the Ministry of Defense, whereby they have said that, boss, you've completely demolished all the good work that we've done. Either stop interfering. I'll let you ask a question, Samya. I mean, there are some briefing rules, and we've been around for donkey's years. So therefore, what does the note say? It says, boss, you've completely demolished our negotiating position. Either get off and let us do our job, or do it yourself. Essentially, that's what that note says. I mean, the Ministry of Defense could not have been more categorical in its indictment of the Prime Minister's office. Yes, Samya, ask. So what's Mr. Parikar doing here? You need to understand. So Mr. Parikar is saying, guys, it is all right if he has undermined our negotiating position. Don't react. Keep quiet. But in future, deal directly with the PMO. I have nothing to do with it. So, essentially that makes the former defense minister guilty and culpable of completely and absolutely avoiding his constitutional responsibility, which is taking the concerns of his officers on board rather than kicking the ball upstairs. But Parikar is a wise man. He knew that there's something rotten and stinking out here, and it'll come out one of these days. And he tried to distance himself, and he nailed the Prime Minister. And that's why the Prime Minister of India needs to find himself a better advocate than his own defense minister. There's something on this side, or we can conclude. Thank you. Yeah. We said that since the government has filed a clarificatory application, and that application is obviously going to be listed at some point in time, we do hope that the Supreme Court will take cognizance of the fact that there was a parallel negotiation which was being pursued by the Prime Minister's office, and that fact was advertently and deliberately hidden from the Supreme Court when the government filed its affidavit. We do hope that the court takes cognizance of it. Look, at times I almost feel sad for the defense minister. I mean, if you look at her, she has that weird hunted look on her face of an absolutely cornered person. So actually, I at times sympathize with her plight, because it's the case of a bad lawyer trying to defend a bad case. And insofar as her latest deflection is concerned, or attempted deflection is concerned, may I respectfully point out that it is our duty as an opposition to bring the truth to the people. And if they feel that we are doing something outside the four corners of the law, we challenge them to file appropriate proceedings against us. It's our challenge. There is corruption and bribery, allegedly, which has taken place, which will come out. मुझे वो अंग्रेजी में कहावत है कि वाजपेयी जी वुड बी टर्निंग इन हिज ग्रेव। वाजपेयी जी की अंतरात्मा रो रही होगी। हम प्रधानमंत्री जी से पूछना चाहते हैं, क्या श्री अटल बिहारी वाजपेयी की सरकार एक महामिलावट सरकार थी? और इस देश में गठबंधन की प्रक्रिया किसने शुरू की? 1979 में वीपी सिंह की सरकार को भारतीय जनता पार्टी ने समर्थन दिया। जब इनकी 96 में 13 दिन की सरकार गिरी, तो 98 में और 99 में गठबंधन किसने बनाया? और आज जब 42 दल एनडीए भाजपा के साथ हैं या को छोड़ चुके हैं, तो क्या प्रधानमंत्री जी मानते हैं कि वो एक बहुत बड़ी महामिलावट के सरगना है? सॉरी, देखिए, ये इनकी जो सरकार है, क्या भाजपा की सरकार गठबंधन की सरकार नहीं है? तो जब प्रधानमंत्री जी ये कहते हैं कि गठबंधन महामिलावट है, तो क्या एनडीए भाजपा गठबंधन नहीं है? क्या ये जो सरकार चल रही है, ये गठबंधन की सरकार नहीं है? इसमें बाकी लोग, बाकी राजनीतिक दल शामिल नहीं है? तो अगर उनका ये मानना है कि ये महामिलावट है, तो फिर वो इस इतनी बड़ी महामिलावट में के जिसमें 40-42 दल शामिल हैं, उसके सरगना है। थैंक यू।